Thank you so much. Nice job. Very nice job. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Thank you. Please sit down. Fantastic. Wonderful day to be in Phoenix, Arizona, isn't it? Gorgeous, gorgeous place. I've been here probably 20 times doing America's Most Wanted, doing 20 different shows here over the years, battling the people who prey upon you people. And I always had a wonderful time. Law enforcement here tries very hard and is faced with many, many difficult challenges, but it's a great place to live. It's a really gorgeous place to live. And before I start, I want to thank all the people who put this together. There are 32 schools here in the Washington School District, and many, many people that work for the schools and volunteers, people who help put Parents University together today. And I think every county in America should have a Parents University. So I say thanks to all of you that are here today that put this on today. It's fantastic. And absolutely. And thanks to Mount Sky Junior High for hosting us today. Susan was talking about the special relationship that I have with Cox, and thank you, Susan, for the beautiful introduction. It is a very special relationship. Lee Woussard is back in their corporate offices in Atlanta, and Mallard Holliday, who he and I have become friends over the years, good friends, have always thought that children were very important. And as you know, Cox Communications is one of the top cable providers in America, but I also say that they are one of America's best corporate citizens because they have their priorities in order, and that is their main priority is to try to keep children safe and to educate you as caring, loving parents of all the challenges that we face in the world today. So my hat's off to Cox. Cox Communications is a wonderful provider of education for you, and you'll learn some things today. They have a couple of wonderful websites that we're going to talk about, and you can go to those websites. There's no test here today, so it's not going to be whether you're paying attention, but I see most of you are raptly paying attention. But I was asked to talk about internet safety, and I still have a teenager. If Adam was alive, and Susan was talking about our first child, Adam, he was murdered in 1981. If he was alive, he'd be 38 this November 14th. But we just got our last child out of high school, and he's in his first year of college. So we've been having children for 37 years, so I know a lot about kids, and I know a lot about the challenges, and we just got our last teenager, he's still a teenager, off to college, and I've watched the changes over the years. It's been incredible, and it has been so rapid with the devices and the presence of the internet for good and bad. And I don't deny, and I think we all know it, that the internet is the super information highway. It is the reality of making this a global community. But I also see the downside of the internet, and have seen it for years. As the internet becomes bigger, more popular, it is the private hunting ground for bad guys. There is a part of the internet that they call deep space that was set up by the United States government so terrorists, people who knew about terrorism and informants could go onto that website and do the right thing and inform the United States government about terrorism. Well, that website, which protects the anonymity of these people, has been hijacked by hackers who now know exactly how to exchange information on the internet. And maybe if you're watching the news of a couple weeks ago, they infiltrated a different site, not the deep space site, which is full of all kinds of bad people, child pornographers, hackers, money launderers, drug dealers, terrorists, etc., who operate under complete anonymity. They broke and busted a website called Silk Road out of San Francisco that was averaging about $2 billion worth of drug sales over the internet within the United States. And you could buy other things beside drugs. You could buy weapons and different things that they put up there, illegal weapons. So the internet has become this kind of place where most of the people who deal with the internet are good people. And the people who have figured out how to use it for bad, it's their private hunting ground. And we've had to grow with that. Cox over the years has put together a phenomenal partnership with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That's in Washington, D.C., and has 5 branches around the country. But their 4th floor is where they hunt predators, where they hunt pedophiles. And that floor has grown now. We have, I think, 15 federal agencies that are up there, marshals, FBI, customs, postal inspectors, and they spend all day, every day, hunting for the people who use the internet as their private hunting ground for children. And that partnership has been a wonderful partnership, but every time I go to the National Center, I'm amazed at what's new, what these bad guys have figured out how to use the internet to prey upon children. And internet use and the use of internet devices is doubling every 2 years. And I have to admit, I see parents, nobody's my age here. I mean, I'm a grandfather for the first time, but I still have a teenager. But I don't see any parents my age here, but when I grew up, there weren't computers, there weren't smartphones, there weren't game consoles, there weren't all those different devices. And I know one thing, that my kids are way savvier than I am. And I have to really trust them. I will never be able to figure out how to use the internet the way that they grew up on the internet, and how they use it and what they do, and the advent of social networking sites. 85% of American kids are on one of those sites somewhere. Almost all of them are on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. But when I look at people's Facebook pages, and let me give you a really good tip, if your child isn't your friend, if you haven't friended your child, if your child hasn't friended you on Facebook, then tell them, I'm taking away the computer. You're not going to have a Facebook page, because you need to know what they're doing on Facebook. We have caught so many predators that are on Facebook, and I know there's kids here, but this is about kids. One of the last cases we did, as Susan mentioned, America's Most Mentioned, was on for almost 26 years. We're done, and we're talking about doing something else, but that show caught 1,235 of the worst creeps all over the world in 45 countries and recovered 60 missing children. Something to be proud of. But the one guy, when I left the last show of doing America's Most Wanted, the one guy I wanted to catch the most of the last year was a guy who was friended and was communicating with an 11-year-old boy from a very wealthy family in a big multi-million-dollar house. And somehow that boy got on Facebook, and that boy invited in someone that we still don't know who it is, invited and chatted with that person continually. That man came to that house and raped and murdered that 11-year-old boy and killed the housekeeper that had worked for the family for 30 years. And police were looking at the friends and family of the housekeeper. And I kept saying, you know, we got to get into that boy's computer. We really need to know who he was talking to. And of course they did. They went right in there. The part of the police department, their forensic division went in and went, oh my God, he's 11 years old. He's not supposed to be on Facebook. Nobody knew he was on Facebook. His parents didn't know, his teachers. He had an older sibling who didn't know. He was 11 years old, and they tracked it down. They couldn't find the IP address of that guy. That guy's out there. He was invited into a house by an 11-year-old child that he raped and murdered and killed the housekeeper that he didn't know was there. Obviously, the boy didn't tell him there was a housekeeper there. I hope someday he's caught, but he's out there. And how did he do all that? Because that little 11-year-old naive boy thought he was talking to someone that he could share and trust with, and that person came and he opened that front door, and that person killed that little boy. I hope we catch that guy. That is a terrible frustration for me. But the one thing Cox and I agree on is knowledge is power. I think Cox is a phenomenal cable provider. I think they have the biggest community affairs department of any corporation in America, and they reach out, and we agree that knowledge is power. And that's why they partnered today with Parents University. So let's take a look at some of the questions. Now, this is not to embarrass you. I know you're going to say, when it says, do you talk to your children about, using different devices and what they're doing on the internet? I know you're all going to say yes. And most parents do. About 85% of parents in this country do talk to their kids. But you really got to be brutally honest, because the minute that child leaves the house, no matter how much you've talked to them, they turn on their smartphone, they go to somebody's house and get on a gaming device, and they can get on the internet immediately. They can talk to people you have no idea what they're doing. They're visiting chat rooms, they're on social networking websites that you probably don't even know they're on, and that's why we need to talk to them. We really need to open these lines of communication. We really need to get involved in their lives, no matter if you're mystified by what they do, or you may not have a Facebook page. You ought to know what they're doing. So let's take the test. Let's take a look at the test here and go over some of the stuff, and we'll see how you do. Arizona did pretty well in this test. As Susan mentioned, every year they do this teen, now that it's tweens are involved in it too, Tweens and Teens, this national survey, and I've led 4 of these conferences around the country. But let's take the test and see how you do, and we can talk about it. Will you put up the first slide, please? Okay, I'm going to turn around here. It says, how many internet-connected devices does the average household have? Go ahead, press your little button. Think about it. Think about what you got in your house, what your kids have got. Okay, we're getting close. We got most everybody on there. I'm going to look at my notes here. Okay, people are still voting. Okay, I say let's look at the answer. Okay, how many internet-connected devices does the average household have? 52% of people said 6, and that's right. I'm sorry, yeah, 6. Exactly. Here's the slide. Internet usage patches have increased dramatically, doubling every 2 years. The average household has 6 devices connect to the internet. So everybody's got the game consoles and the smartphones and the tablets and every one of those things your kids can get on the internet. They can do it when they're upstairs and you punish them and you took their tablet away and they've got their sister's smartphone under the couch, under the sheets. So, or they're somewhere on the internet. So that old adage, years ago we learned a lot doing these conferences. I used to tell everybody that's when there was one computer in the home. If you can remember, a lot of you are young parents. And we used to say, okay, limit the time on the internet, keep that tablet in the living room, and when little Janie and Johnny comes home to do their homework, watch them, let them get on there for 15 minutes, play their games, and let them go to bed. Those days are over. They're all on the internet. It says the average kid is on the internet 6 hours a day. Now, it's amazing, isn't it? 6 hours a day. There's only 24 hours in the day. I don't know, I have a teenager, he'd sleep 24 hours if he could, but they're on that internet 6 hours a day. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, do you regularly talk to your children about their activity on the internet? Now, after I just gave you the lecture about talking, I guess that should be 100%. Let's vote on that one pretty quick. Everybody, yep, there we go. Yes. Okay, so it says 62% say yes, 38% say no. Okay, let's see the national average. How many parents in Arizona? It was really pretty good response. 81% of parents in Arizona said that they talk to their kids. The national average is 84%. 76 have talked to their teens, 77% have talked to their teens about internet safety in the past year, and 77% is the national average. Arizona's pretty good, but I really think it depends on how you talk to them. Really think about it. They know how to slide on you. They know how to get by you. They know when you're punishing them and you take their cell phone away, or you take their tablet away and only let them do it at night, or their iPad. They're going to go to somebody's house. What you really have to do is really talk to them. You really have to say, you know what, if there's something really creepy that's really disturbing you, inappropriate messages, maybe you don't want to talk to dad, maybe you don't want to talk to mom, tell a teacher. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children runs a 24-hour tip line for parents, for children, that you can call up and say, I'm being stalked, I'm being hunted, I'm being bullied, whatever is happening, they have that resource, and tell them this: I'm not going to punish you. If you come to me and say, I saw child pornography on the internet, you're not going to say, oh, I know you're on porn websites all the time to your 15-year-old boy, or you're not going to say that. You're going to say, look, this is wonderful. I'm not taking your smartphone away. I'm not going to take your iPad away. I'm not going to punish you. This is great. You came and told me. And you tell me and I'll do something about it. And if you don't feel comfortable about telling mom, or you don't want to share it with dad, which lots of teenage boys don't want to do that, or young boys or girls, then tell somebody else. But you can tell them, I'm not going to punish you. Please, don't make it about punishment. All the kids that I've talked to in the last 8 years have said the same thing. I'm afraid to confide in my parents because they're going to take away my cell phone. It's like taking away their ability to breathe. Now, if they do something really bad, what can you really do to punish them? People ask me that all the time. I say, really, take their cell phone away for 24 hours. Take their car keys away if they're a teenager. Then they'll listen to them. What else can you really do to them? That's the only thing. You can ground them. You can send them to their room. You can ground them from the weekend. You can tell them you're not buying anything for them for a month or whatever. Really punishing them is to take that cell phone away. But when you're talking to kids about internet safety, tell them, it's not about punishment. I'm here. Something gut feeling happens and somebody's making you uncomfortable and it's creepy, tell me and we'll do something about it. And you're not going to get in trouble and nobody's going to drag you before the principal or whatever. We'll do something about it. Let's try the next slide. Okay, would your child tell you if they were contacted by a stranger online? Okay, this is a tough one. And I'm always surprised at the national response to this. I really am not surprised, but it has to do with what I was just talking about. I think we all think we know our kids. I think we all, because we eat with them and see them and love them and micromanage their lives and get involved in everything they do, I think you think your child would tell. But let's look at the, no. Let's look at the national response. Okay, 64% of local teens have received a personal message for someone they didn't know. It's probably more than that, and I mean, that's what teens are telling us. 36% say they only respond to ask who they are. Yeah, that's a big fib too. I know lots of kids that go on and they're curious, it's provocative. Where are you? You know, are you my age? All that stuff. I hope that is true, but I doubt that stat. Only 24% tell someone they've been contacted by a stranger. 9%, I think we've gotten that down low because of all the education programs and mandatory education, how much people like Cox have done to educate our kids that they shouldn't respond to strangers. Only 9% reply to the message or chat with a stranger. That little 11-year-old boy was chatting with that man for months before that guy figured out how to get in the house. So I think we still have a big job to do with kids, to tell them, as curious as you are, and that's part of being a kid, and as curious as you are about finding out who contacted you, that you should think about it for a minute. It's easy not to do it. If you're doing it and that person or that contact made you feel creepy, gave you that gut feeling in your stomach, I always tell people, go by your instinct, go by your gut. And I tell kids that all the time. If it's really disturbing, then you got to tell somebody. You got to tell somebody before that guy figures out where you live, before that person figures out what you do, before that person starts to bully you at school and figures you're that kind of naive person that'll respond. Let's go to the next slide. Would your children meet someone in person that they only knew from online contact? My God, how many years have we been telling kids not to do that? Let's see what you think. I mean, I think when the internet started, we started to tell our kids not to meet somebody that they only met online. Okay, we're getting close, and I think I know the answer. Okay, so would your children meet someone in person that they only knew from online contact? 59% say no, 12% say yes, 30% not sure. Do we have Arizona stats on there? 31% of local teens, okay, that's here in Arizona, have met with someone in person whom they only knew from online contact. Now, that bothers me. When as you know, I worked for Fox for 26 years. I loved it. It was the first reality television program. I don't know if reality television is the category anymore. I think Jersey Shore and Honey Boo Boo is not reality. And those shaky housewives from everywhere is not a reality show. But Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox, bought MySpace. That was way before Facebook. And he came to me and said, I paid $650 million for MySpace, and I'm starting to get this feeling that there are sex offenders on MySpace, that there are creeps on MySpace. Now this is prehistoric times, back before Facebook was even around, okay? So he came to visit the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C. He looked at all that was going on there and he went, my God, I need to find out if there's any convicted sex offenders on MySpace. He bought a software that didn't exist. The FBI didn't have it, the US Marshals didn't have it, local sheriffs, local cops didn't have it. It cost them about $4 million. It spun booking photos of convicted sex offenders around the United States. He matched that software to MySpace and found out that they had 80,000 level 3, that's the bad guys, not the guy who peed at Mardi Gras, not the kid, the 18-year-old kid that was having consensual sex with a 16-year-old girl and the father hated him. Not those guys, the really bad guys. 80,000 of them were on MySpace. Predators that were on MySpace. So Rupert made it a rule that if you were a level 3 convicted sex offender, you couldn't be on MySpace. Facebook is just starting to do this, mainly because of the murder of that 11-year-old boy. They're trying to keep convicted sex offenders off of Facebook. So just look at that one social networking website. You can go on that, 30, whatever the real number is, 30 plus kids are meeting someone they don't know, and they're going out to the mall. They don't know if it's a 25-year-old creep, a 55-year-old convicted sex offender. Murdoch, when he bought MySpace, had 11 ongoing lawsuits. One of them was from a girl who got lured to a mall. The guy was waiting for in the parking lot and murdered her. So we need to talk to our kids about meeting people that they met online. We really, really have to talk about this. I have kids, I have a teenager, they're bulletproof, they're immortal. They know how to vet everybody. I'm telling you, I could choke them when they tell me that I know better than you. I know that's a beautiful Abercrombie and Fitch model that's 16 years old and he's the high school football hero and all this stuff. No, it's a creepy guy in a room somewhere that knows exactly how to talk to you. Or it's somebody that really wants to hurt you. And I don't know how we can do it, but how we can convince our kids that they have to vet somebody before they decide that that person is safe enough for them to go to the mall Saturday night and meet that person to go to a game arcade or meet that person at that arcade. We're working on that all the time, but it could be, you should talk to your kids about that because the numbers dropped dramatically in the last couple of years of going out to meet someone they met online. But look at that, 31% of Arizona kids, that's 1 out of 3 kids, is going, Mom, Dad, I'm not talking to anybody. No, don't worry about it. Boom, out the door. They're at the park, they're at a concert, they're somewhere, and they're looking for that wonderful person that they've been talking to online. Okay, let's go to the next one. Do you tell your children your computer password? This will be an interesting response. Okay, fire away. Okay, people have saddled up really good for that one. Okay, let's see what the people say. Okay, yes. Okay, why? If you tell your kids your password so they can know what you're doing, know what? So that they can check things, etc. Okay, I don't know, one of the biggest parts of that deep space part of the internet is identity theft and hacking. So think it's smart to give your 12-year-old your password, and then somebody contacts them on their iPhone and says, I'll give you 3 free downloads from iTunes if you get mommy's social and mommy's credit card. Okay, ba-bing, ba-bing, into mommy's password, give it all out. Next thing you know, next week, somebody's taken out a second mortgage in your name, bought a car in Guatemala or somewhere in Uzbekistan and your credit's ruined and you're in debt because you gave your kids your password. Come on, don't give them your password. Make it your password, okay? And if they need to know your credit card number, or you're lazy and you want them to look at everything, what about that special photo you sent your husband on the anniversary? Think about that now. Okay, so let's think about the passwords. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, of those who have disabled parental controls, 50% of teens say their parents actually shared their password with them. I just don't get it. I'm a TV producer. I do things on my computer that I just don't want my kids to know. I don't want them to know how much money I've got in my bank account here or there. I don't want them transferring funds because I told them everything that's in my, I don't know. Okay, so 50% say they figured out their parents' password. My son figured out my wife's password 3 times in a row. They're way smarter than we are. We're lazy. We can't remember. I've had 6 concussions and a fractured skull. I have dementia. I cannot remember the 82 passwords that I'm supposed to have. So I do the easy, dumb ones. And my teenage son sits there and goes, bing, bing, bang. I go, I hope you're not a hacker because you're going to jail. But think about the passwords. Think about telling your kids, and think about how smart they are and how easy it is for them to figure out your password. Okay, let's go to the next one. Have you done anything on your computer to monitor your children's internet activity? Okay, that's a good one. Okay, let's see the response. I think everybody... Okay, no, that's an honest response. That's how it is across America. 40%, okay. 57% of parents say they have done nothing to monitor internet use on home computers, desktops, or laptops. 61% of parents say they've done nothing to monitor internet uses on mobile devices and handheld gaming devices. Okay. You got to go to the Cox website. They will tell you it's cox.com/takecharge, and we'll get it to you afterward. It teaches you how to put the parental controls on everything. It tells you how to set times that you can know how much time your kids are on iPads and devices. You really need to know. If they're 6 hours a day on the internet, you've got to know that they're not doing 6 hours of homework, please. Trust me. Trust me on that one. I've had 4 kids. So there are ways to monitor their behavior, how much time there are, and you can set parental controls on their iPad, on their smartphones, on the different devices. If they've got an Android, whatever they've got, you can figure out a way. Cox will teach you how to do it. Okay? Please do that. Please do. We're not talking about violation of privacy. And people ask me all the time, you know, my daughter didn't friend me on the Facebook page. I said, okay, so what if she sends that, what if she's sexting? Maybe not. Oh, she's such a good girl. Okay, what if she sends that inappropriate picture, or that inappropriate tweet, or that inappropriate message? You know that every college counselor in America is now looking at kids' Facebook pages. I just took my son to college, and I asked what the requirements were, and the director of admissions wanted to meet me. I'm a TV guy that hunts down bad guys, and I said, how do you gauge admission? Well, Mr. Walsh, we look at the SATs first, we look at the GPA, the grade point average, we look at the activities, and we look at the kid's Facebook page. And I went, so if somebody made a mistake when they were 14 and their parents didn't know about it, and they put that picture on Facebook, and they trusted that high school football hero, and he showed it to 10 buddies, and they made fun of that 14, 15-year-old girl, it's up there forever. Now who's looking at Facebook pages? Employers. Many, many employers look at what your grades were in high school. If you're just a high school grad, if you're a college grad, they look at your grades and they look at your Facebook page. They want to know how you behave socially before you give them that, before they give you that job. Okay, we got another one. Do your children check into locations when they're out with friends? This is a tough one. This is one that I really have a tough time dealing with. let's see, we're close. People are thinking about it. Just give it a minute. 79%. Check in where they post on their where they are exactly. Okay, let's look at what you said. Yes, 49% of people, they probably check in with you. Okay, 37%. Okay, sharing personal information, location. 70% of local teens have personally checked into locations via social network or other location-based sites. National average is about the same. 51% of local teens have friends who sometimes check them into a location, 49% national average. I'm really conflicted on this one because we're lazy and we want our kids to check in, and if your son or your daughter's on the lacrosse team, she's got to say, I'm here, I'm going here, we're all going to meet here. If she's Girl Scout, Boy Scout. I'm really conflicted on this because I'm the guy that catches the worst of the worst. I'm the guy that goes after the people who hurt your children. I do think, and certainly that boy that I talked about on Facebook, I do think for sure American kids put way too much information on everything. Every device they have, they just tell everybody everything. Where they are, their full name, when they're at cheerleading practice, how they're getting home, where they're going to be at 10 o'clock, where they're going to be at 11 o'clock. I don't think it's a good thing. I hunt these people down for a living. They analyze it, they groom kids, they find the kid who's in trouble involved in a terrible divorce, or mom or dad has some type of problem, or mom has 6 jobs, and they get as much information as they can, and they learn everything about that kid. And I have done so many bad guys who have tracked and stalked and hunted kids because they got all that information online. I really think you got to sit down with your kids and say, I understand you have to do it. I understand you grew up that you had a smartphone in your crib. I know you grew up with this, and you're obsessed with talking to your friends, and you're obsessed with telling them everything, but think about it twice. Think about it and talk to your kids about doing it, and you guys figure out a way to communicate with your kids better than posting where they got to be every 5 seconds. I mean, that's one of the problems with Twitter. It is the most innate. I tweet, I have a Twitter account, I have a Facebook page, but the problem is it is the inane way that people tell you that they just went to the grocery store. Who cares that they got some tomatoes that look good? Who cares they're there? But tweeting is something that I think is an addiction for people, and just talk to your kids about giving up too much information. I mean, my kids always went online because of who I am, and they only used the first name that wasn't theirs, and they only gave up information, and certain information, and it didn't stop them from having friends. It didn't stop them from communicating with their friends. I mean, kids don't call you. They don't talk on the phone. They text. That's all they do is text. You misinterpret it. You send back a text you never wish you'd sent about 5 minutes later, and they never talk to you. They never call you up. It's texting. Dad, I text you 32 times. I went, call me up. I want to know. I want to hear what you're doing. But anyway, that's something that I just can't figure out, the sharing and the checking in all the time. Just be aware of it. Okay, do we have one more? Do your children have access to the internet through any non-traditional devices? Be interested to hear what you say about that. Okay, we got pretty great response. Everybody's really hitting those buttons and paying attention. Okay, let's see. Okay, number one's the right answer. Sort of have access to internet through any, yeah, absolutely. Let's see, the national, 85% of local teens here in Arizona use a laptop computer with internet access. We know that, duh. 74% of local teens use smartphones, probably more than that, I would imagine. 41% use handheld gaming devices with internet access, such as Nintendo DS, Sony PSP. It's the gaming devices that people don't seem to figure out that their kids are online. They're at somebody else's house, or they've got a game console and they're online, and you really need to know about that. That's what they're doing on the 6 hours a day. They're at somebody else's house, or they're playing Xbox or whatever they're playing, and they're online. They can communicate online, they can play the game online, they can talk to people in Russia, Uzbekistan, they can talk to the pedophile that's down the street online on a gaming console. So be aware of that. Okay, next one. We're done? Is that it? Okay. I was kidding. It's going to be a multiple choice test. We'll see how everybody paid attention. Okay. I want to take questions. I think you probably got questions, and I'm done lecturing. I don't know I know one thing, that my son, 19-year-old son, knows how to use those devices and how to use the internet way better than I do. I concede that. I think I see lots of you shaking your heads. No matter how tech savvy you are, your kid is better at it than you. You gotta deal with that. They grew up with it. They grew up with it. It's part of their profile. It's part of their personality. It's part of their presence. And they live on it. And they don't have a clue what it can do, what can happen on the internet. So let's take some questions, and there's one lady way up there. There's somebody close here. Let's start in the front. We'll go to you next. Ladies first.
So even though you have your friends on Facebook with your daughter or son, what about those private messages where you can still, I can see like history and stuff and who's commenting and stuff. But what about like the private message, that goes back and forth? Do I like take the phone and look at that type of conversation, or just kind of being the friend in the background is sufficient enough to kind of know who they're chatting with?
I personally say to my kids, anything you do on Facebook, I want you to think about it. I want you to think that you'd have no problem with it being posted on the front of the New York Times, USA Today, on MTV, and that I can see it, but I want to see them. I look at them and I check on them myself. But they're always going to figure out a way to get around it. So this is mostly about communication. The reality is, I say to parents all the time, my kid is my best friend. I go, not really. Your job is to get that kid out the door at 18. They can volunteer and go to Afghanistan, the Peace Corps. They can go to Harvard, Yale, or to a state or a technical school, and they can do that and they can vote. But up until 18, you're the parent. You're supposed to feed them. You're supposed to educate them. You're supposed to discipline them. Parent up. I say it to people all the time. Parent up. Yes, sir.
Parental control. Is there any way to go on the iPhone? When you go on the iPhone and you settings, is there any way to have a passcode so they'll enable the location on their Facebook, on their iPhone?
Yes, you can do that. You can and go to that. Avery, tell me the local website, the website you told me. Cox7.com. And if you can't answer that question, they can go to the main Cox website. Cox7.com. Okay, behind you there's a lady right there. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, so much. I'm honored to be here.
Glad to be here.
A couple things. I tell my kids the same thing. I don't owe you anything other than shelter, food, education, and clothes. Beyond that, you need to earn it.
Absolutely.
So, having said that, I am honored to be a mom that can do everything that I can for those kids. Now, there's my son is 13. He's got a girlfriend who's 14, and she's sending the really inappropriate stuff over the internet. My husband busted my son the other night,
Yep.
and we've had to pull all the reins in.
Right.
And she is presenting all kinds of girls picture quicker than boys. So
Without a doubt.
My son is answering them. I don't know. And she's presenting R-rated to X-rated stuff to him. And we're trying to teach him that he should not be hanging out with girls that talk to all boys and all that kind of stuff. So he's getting very introduced and integrated and indoctrinated with stuff. And so
You're so right. I mean, it's not your son. It's almost every teenage boy in America. And every teenage girl, we run into the National Center, I think handled 700,000 requests from help from parents, inappropriate texts, not just from strangers, but from other kids. I never forget when Hayden, who's our teenage 19-year-old son, around 14, he said, "Dad, I want to take some girls out on the boat. You know, will you drive us? And we're gonna water ski and tube and wakeboard and all this stuff." And he and his two buddies and these three girls came walking down the dock, and I went, "Oh my God, they're hanging out with cougars." And I went, "How do I deal with this?" And these girls walked down the dock, and they looked like Lindsay Lohan, and they looked like everybody. And I went, "Oh my God, I'm the creepy guy. Oh, I don't want to. What the hell?" And he went, "They're 15 and they're 16. I went, "What happened when I went to high school? When I went to college, girls didn't look like that." Those girls ran the whole day. They were in charge. Those boys were like deer in the headlights. They were staring and looking and thrilled that those girls were there. The girls said, "I want to go first. We'll do this. Tonight we're going here. We're picking out this movie, but da-da-da-da-da." And I went, wow, I always knew that girls matured faster. It's a whole different day and age. These girls were just gorgeous, but boy, were they in charge. They were running the show. They told those three snake-bit boys where to be, what time, what to do. So it is about talking. It's a real different day and age. I don't care how old you are. I mean, I'm looking at parents that are probably 19 years old in here. It's a whole different day and age. And kids are, if there isn't anything they can't find on the internet, there isn't anything that they don't see. They go to websites, they're all on YouTube all day long. They look at websites posted by terrorists of beheadings that would make you or I throw up. And as tough as I am and the worst I've seen in this business, these kids can get on YouTube at anybody's house and see everything and anything. And there's no way to isolate them from that. And there's no way to stop him except to hope that he'll make good decisions. And maybe if it gets too far, you gotta say, "Hey, bud, I'm gonna take that smartphone away or that droid away. It's in your purse." Well, you're a good mom. You're tough. You're really tough. Yes, sir.
Time for just one more question. I've been a high school teacher for 18 years. In the year 2005, 2006, I had an exchange student from Sweden. He connected the internet back then to get Facebook. I saw he was communicating with the school, with my students at school.
Right.
Some of the girls and boys that were on there, I said, "These are my students." I couldn't believe that back then they were doing things that, like, very risky things. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Has the average student nowadays become smart enough so they shouldn't put things like what I saw back in 2005, 2006 because of what's going on in the world, or do they still put things on Facebook that have changed as time goes along?
Every minute of every day, some teenager, or now we're talking about tweens. When Cox first had the first tween and teen summit, the tweens were smarter and more savvy than the teens because they had grown up with, I'm not kidding, with those smartphones in their cribs. They were on iPads and devices when they were 4, 5. And you know, of course, in Sweden and lots of parts of the world, pornography is legal. They're very open societies. They're a little bit different than the United States, but that kid wasn't doing anything wrong. He just was from Sweden, where they have a different attitude about sex than we do. And again, I think you make the point that I'm saying. It really is about communication. It's about parenting. It's about monitoring your kids. It's about making yourself savvy. It's about going to the Cox website and learn how you can monitor those devices, how you can set parental controls. But I'm not naive. I know that these kids are savvier than I am. I just hope that I instilled in my children some empathy, some compassion, a moral code, some responsibility, how to make good choices, how to not do something that was going to affect the rest of their life, like sexting, where the kid they send the sexting to, some states It's child pornography for the 13-year-old girl to send it. Now DAs are smart and they don't prosecute, but some of them are overzealous. And the boy that transferred it to his 14-year-old boys is now a distributor of child pornography, and they're in a world of hell. I'm trying to educate DAs that that's not the guys and kids you should be going after. It should be the guys who make child pornography and put it on the internet and distribute it to pedophiles and stuff like this. But it's really about choices and being involved with that kid. Find out what home he's going to. I don't know how many live-in boyfriends and stepdaddies that I have caught over the years that molested somebody else's children and preyed upon those children, or something went bad in that house, or there were 10 guns that weren't locked up and somebody shot somebody in that house. It really is about getting in your kid's life. It's about educating yourself. It's about getting the tools, like the tools that Cox have and all the things you learned here today. And it's about taking the time to sit down with that kid and say, I love you to death, but I'm your parent. I need to know where you're going. I need to know what you're doing. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm not, and I'm not going to brutalize you and punish you for coming to me, but this is not a democracy. This is kind of a benevolent dictatorship. And I'm the dictator. I'm the parent, and parent up, but educate yourself. But it's time for me to go. I think, again, to the people who put this on, Cox, I love working with you. Cox Communications is fantastic. The people who put this parent university on, it's fantastic that they set it up. But you know what I love to see? People always talk about America disintegrating, that there's no fathers, there's no mentors, people aren't monitoring what their children are. Hats off to you. I see lots of men here today, and I see lots of parents who love their children. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for having me here in Phoenix. God bless you. Be safe. Thank you. Thank you.